Humanity's space exploration program had reached new heights, but no one had ever expected the secrets they were about to uncover. It all began with a routine mission, a simple scan of a distant star system known as Epsilon 9. The system was far from anything that could spark interest. Its planets were barren, its stars dim. But when the scanning equipment picked up an unusual anomaly near the outer edge of the system, the crew of the Discovery spaceship had no idea they were about to make one of the most extraordinary discoveries in history. Captain Sophia Hall stood in the bridge of the Discovery, her eyes scanning the holographic display of the star system. The stars flickered in the distance, like pinpricks of light against the black curtain of space. It had been an ordinary mission until now. "Captain, we've picked up something strange," reported Lieutenant Ramirez, his voice tight with unease. "A massive object. It's not showing up in any of the known star maps." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "How massive are we talking about, Lieutenant?" "Massive," Ramirez repeated, his fingers flying over the control panel. "The object it's planet-sized. And it's not natural. It's artificial." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Planet-sized. Artificial. There was no precedent for something like this. The Discovery crew had only explored the small planets and moons of this system, with nothing remarkable found before. The thought of an object of that size, something made by intelligence, was almost impossible to comprehend. "Prepare a close scan," Sophia ordered. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." As the crew worked to bring up a more detailed image, a chilling realization began to sink in. The object wasn't just one large structure. It was a massive fleet of ships, each one large enough to dwarf anything humanity had ever built. The ships looked like nothing from any human-made designs, with strange markings and sharp, angular features. They seemed to float in space, dormant but not entirely lifeless. "We're looking at something incredible," Ramirez murmured. "A fleet of planet-sized starships, all abandoned. But why were they left here? And by who?" Sophia couldn't shake the unease that settled in her chest. The thought of such enormous ships, each capable of altering the balance of power in the galaxy, was too much to ignore. These weren't the remnants of a forgotten war. These were weapons of unimaginable power. "We need to make contact with Earth Command," Sophia said firmly, trying to shake the chill creeping down her spine. "This changes everything. This could change the future of humanity. We need more data." As the crew continued their scans, the size and scope of the Discovery became clear. These ships were far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. They were capable of surviving the harshest environments, drifting through space like ancient titans waiting for the right moment to awaken. But the question remained, why had they been left here? What purpose did they serve? And who had built them? "Captain," Lieutenant Ramirez said, his voice cracking slightly, "we're not alone here. I'm detecting energy readings coming from within the ships." The room went silent. The ships, long thought to be abandoned, were showing signs of life. Sophia's stomach twisted. This was no longer just a discovery. It was a warning. Whatever had built these ships, whatever force had created them, was still out there. And now, humanity had unwittingly stumbled upon it. In the silence of space, humanity was no longer the most powerful force. A new mystery had awakened, one that could shatter everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. The true question now was, what was waiting for them in the depths of space, and could they survive the discovery of the century? In this first part, the shocking discovery of planet-sized starships sets the stage for an adventure unlike anything humanity has ever faced. As the crew of the Discovery begins to uncover the secrets of these ancient ships, they realize they've stumbled into a galaxy-altering mystery. What's next? The adventure has only just begun. The Discovery hovered in the silence of space, the massive fleet of planet-sized starships stretching out before them. They had discovered something incredible, something far beyond human understanding. But the more the crew uncovered, the more questions arose. Captain Sophia Hall stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic map of the star system. The energy readings from the ships had been steady, but something had changed. The energy pulses were intensifying, growing stronger by the minute. It wasn't just a faint signal anymore. It was like a heartbeat, slow but undeniable. "Captain," Lieutenant Ramirez said, his voice filled with both awe and concern. "The energy readings, they're spiking. Whatever's inside those ships, it's waking up." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She had hoped that the ships were long dormant, relics of an ancient civilization. But the readings now suggested otherwise. These weren't just ships. They were alive, or at least something inside them was. "Can you pinpoint the source?" Sophia asked, trying to mask the fear creeping into her voice. Ramirez nodded, his eyes glued to the control panel. "It's coming from the core of each ship, but the strange part is, it's not a normal energy signal. It's almost like a consciousness. Something intelligent is inside." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. If these ships were still active, if they housed something alive, then the implications were enormous. These ships were not abandoned by accident. They had been waiting for something or someone, and whatever it was now stirring to life. "Captain, we've just received a distress call from the fleet's outermost vessel," Lieutenant Zhang said, her face pale. It's coming from one of the ships. The message is encoded in an ancient language, one we've never seen before." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. "Is it a message from whoever created these ships?" Zhang hesitated before speaking. "It's not a message from a creator. It feels more like a warning, or a command." Sophia didn't wait another second. "Bring it up on the screen." The room fell silent as the encrypted message appeared in front of them. The symbols were strange and unfamiliar, each one pulsing with a sense of urgency. As the crew tried to decipher the message, it became clear something was about to happen, something that could not be stopped. Then the signal flickered, and for a moment, the room was plunged into darkness. The screens went dead, the hum of the ship's engines ceased. Panic rippled through the crew as Sophia snapped to action. "Get the power back online now," she commanded. But as the lights flickered back on, the entire ship shook violently. The Discovery lurched as if it were caught in the grip of some invisible force. On the view screen, the planet-sized ships were no longer still. They were shifting, moving, their enormous hulls groaning as they began to awaken. "I'd never seen anything like this," Ramirez muttered. "These ships are moving. They're not just ships. They're alive." Sophia's mind raced. What are we dealing with here? Before she could process further, the ship's warning system blared. "Incoming," it said. "Massive gravitational anomaly detected." A blinding flash of light erupted from the nearest ship. The shock wave hit them with the force of a supernova, sending the Discovery into a violent spin. It felt as if the very fabric of space had been torn apart. "We're caught in the wake of a gravitational field." Ramirez yelled over the alarms. "It's like they've activated some kind of ancient engine." The crew struggled to regain control of the ship, but the energy emanating from the planet-sized starships was overwhelming. They were more than just ships. They were immense, sentient beings, each one capable of bending the laws of physics around them. "Captain," Zhang said, her voice trembling, "we need to leave now. If these ships activate fully, we'll be dragged into their orbit. We'll never get out alive." But Sophia knew it was too late for retreat. The galaxy was about to be changed forever. "Set a course for the nearest habitable planet," Sophia ordered. "We need to get the message back to Earth Command. They need to know what we found, and what we're up against." As the Discovery limped away from the epicenter of the planet-sized ship's awakening, the crew looked out the view screen at the unfolding chaos. The ships, now fully active, began to move. Their once dormant engines roared to life, shaking the stars around them. The galaxy would never be the same again. and humanity was now caught in the middle of an ancient war that had just begun to stir. The Discovery had barely escaped the gravitational pull of the awakening ships. The ship's engines were still reeling from the shockwave, but they managed to keep their distance. Outside, the stars seemed to flicker and dim as the planet-sized ships began to stir. Sophia Hall paced the bridge, her mind racing. The ships had awoken, their immense size and raw power causing chaos across the system. The strange message from the distant ship still echoed in her mind, warning them, but it had been cryptic. It felt as though the ships were trying to communicate, but their language was ancient, too ancient for human knowledge. "Captain, we've got more energy surges," Lieutenant Ramirez reported, his eyes glued to the readings. "The ships are still activating. It's like they're responding to something or someone." Sophia turned to face him. "What do you mean, responding?" Ramirez's fingers flew across the control panel. "I can't say for sure, but it's like they're attuning to each other. They're sensing up. And, Captain, I'm picking up a strange signal. It's a direct transmission from the core of one of the ships." The air seemed to grow colder. "Put it on screen," Sophia ordered. A series of strange symbols appeared on the view screen. They were the same symbols they had seen earlier in the distress message. This time, however, they were clearer, more distinct. A pattern began to emerge. It was a language, though nothing like any known to humanity. "It's almost like they're trying to communicate," Lieutenant Jung said, studying the symbols. "But it's so alien. I can't make sense of it." Sophia's mind raced. What if the ships weren't just tools or weapons? What if they were something more? What if they were sentient beings or had been built to protect something? Something so ancient that even they had forgotten their purpose. "Keep trying to decode it," Sophia said, her voice calm but firm. "We need answers." But before they could continue their efforts, a sudden, jolting alarm blared across the ship. "Captain, we've got a massive ship entering the system," Ramirez shouted. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen before." Sophia rushed to the view screen. A new ship had appeared out of nowhere, a massive warship far larger than any the crew had ever encountered. It was far more advanced than the ships they had discovered, its sleek, dark hull glinting ominously against the backdrop of the stars. It seemed to emerge from the shadows, as if it had been waiting for the right moment. "Is it a new enemy?" Jung asked, her voice filled with dread. "Not like any we've ever encountered," Ramirez replied. "This ship, it doesn't register on any human-made system. It's as if it doesn't even belong to this galaxy." The Discovery was caught in the gravitational pull of the incoming warship. It was like a dark star that had appeared out of nowhere, an ancient titan, just like the planet-sized ships they had discovered. But this one was different. It had a feeling of menace to it. Sophia's hand gripped the back of her chair as the new ship moved closer, its engines humming with a deep, ominous growl. "Captain, they're hailing us," Jung reported. "I can't understand their language, but it's definitely not human." The voice that came through was deep, ancient, and chilling. "Humanity," the voice echoed, filling the entire bridge. "You have awoken us. The time has come. You must be tested." Sophia froze. "Tested? What are you talking about?" The voice responded, cold and emotionless. "The Guardians have been waiting. Your survival is now at risk. The galaxy will judge you. You must prove your worth." The screen flickered, and the symbol of the alien warship filled the display. It was the same pattern they had seen earlier, an ancient, cryptic design that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. Sophia turned to her crew. "Prepare for anything. We have no idea what we're up against." The crew scrambled to their stations as the massive warship continued to approach. Its presence was overpowering, almost suffocating. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath as the ancient ship closed in. "Captain, we're getting a message from the planet-sized starships," Ramirez said, his voice tight. "It's a direct transmission. They want us to know something." "On screen," Sophia ordered. The message that appeared wasn't one of words. It was an image, a strange, ancient symbol that seemed to glow with an eerie light. The symbol resembled the same patterns the crew had seen in their earlier scans, but this time, the symbol was sharper, more defined. And at the center of the symbol was an eye that seemed to stare directly into Sophia's soul. Suddenly, the voice from the warship boomed again. "The tests have begun, humanity. Your fate lies in your hands. Prove your worth, or perish." The Discovery had barely regained control after the shocking transmission from the alien warship. The massive ship hovered ominously nearby, casting a dark shadow over the smaller craft. Sophia Hall stood at the helm, her mind racing. What did the Guardians want? And why were they testing humanity? "Captain," Ramirez said, his voice tense. "The warship is hailing us again. This time, they're giving us a choice." A choice. Sophia raised an eyebrow, her instincts telling her that whatever it was, it wouldn't be good. "Yes, Captain. The message is clear. Proceed or perish," Ramirez said, reading the message on the screen. "They say we must navigate a path through the system, avoiding certain zones, or face the consequences." Sophia clenched her fists. "What kind of path? And what are the zones?" Ramirez glanced at the control panel. "They're calling them the Zones of Judgment. They've already marked them on our star map. If we enter those zones, the Guardians will deem us unworthy, and it won't end well for us." Sophia walked toward the front of the bridge, looking out into space. The warship still loomed near the planet-sized starships, but something was different now. Those starships weren't just waiting. They were moving. They were positioning themselves in a way that made it clear they were watching. The Discovery was not just the focus of one ship, but of an entire fleet of ancient, powerful beings. "We don't have much time," Jung said. "The warship is telling us to choose now. If we don't accept the challenge, they'll consider it a refusal and act accordingly." Sophia turned to her crew. "We don't have a choice. If we refuse, we're as good as dead. And worse, we risk the wrath of the galaxy's oldest guardians. We must prove ourselves." "But how do we even begin to understand these tests?" Zhang asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What if we fail?" "We won't fail," Sophia said, trying to instill confidence in her crew. "We have to trust our instincts. Humanity has survived countless challenges. This won't be any different." As the crew prepared for the unknown, the ship's engines roared back to life. The Discovery shifted course, heading toward the first zone the Guardians had marked. The air on the bridge was thick with tension. "Captain," Ramirez said, his voice calm but shaky, "we're entering the first zone. I'm picking up strange energy readings. They don't match anything we've encountered before." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean, strange energy readings?" "The energy is fluctuating," Ramirez explained. "It's like the zone itself is alive. It's as if the very fabric of space here is different. The closer we get, the more unstable the readings become. It's almost like we're being pulled into something." Sophia didn't need to hear more. She knew that they were being tested. This wasn't just a simple course. They were entering a gauntlet, one designed to test their resourcefulness, their strength, and their ability to survive. "Brace yourselves," she ordered. "Whatever happens, we stick together. We'll get through this. We have no other choice." As the ship moved deeper into the zone, the crew felt a strange sense of pressure. The stars outside seemed to warp and shift, as if the very nature of reality was bending around them. The ship groaned under the strain, and alarms blared as the sensors detected a growing instability. "Captain," Ramirez shouted, "the gravitational field is collapsing. We're caught in a loop. We need to get out of here before we're pulled in." "Cut the engines. Full reverse," Sophia shouted. But it was too late. The Discovery was caught. The gravitational pull was overwhelming, and no matter how much they fought against it, the ship was being drawn closer and closer to an unseen force in the center of the zone. The hull groaned as if it were being pulled apart by an invisible hand. "Captain," We can't escape, Zhang said, her voice panicked. This is it. We're done for. But Sophia's mind was still sharp. She remembered the message. The Guardians had told them they had to prove their worth. This wasn't a random challenge. It was a test, and they had to find a way to pass it. Hold on, Sophia yelled. Reverse the polarity on the gravity controls. We can use the ship's engines to counteract the pull. The crew scrambled to execute the order. The ship's systems screeched as they tried to shift the gravitational polarity, but it was a race against time. With a final, desperate push, the Discovery lurched and shot backward, breaking free from the gravitational field just in time. The ship's engines flared as they accelerated away from the collapsing zone. For a moment, there was silence. The crew was panting, the sweat on their foreheads reflecting the harsh, dim light of the bridge. They had survived the first test, but it wasn't over yet. The Guardians were still watching, and there were more tests to come. That was too close, Ramirez said, his voice shaking. What now? Sophia turned toward him, her eyes steely with resolve. We keep going. This is just the beginning. The Guardians are watching us, and we're not going to fail. The Discovery sailed into the second zone, a region of space where the stars seemed to flicker and dim, as if the very fabric of the galaxy was being manipulated. The crew stood at their stations, eyes wide with anticipation and dread. They had just barely escaped the first zone. What could the Guardians have in store for them now? Captain, Lieutenant Zhang said, her voice tight. I'm reading something strange. It's like a field of interference. Our sensors are malfunctioning. Sophia frowned. Is it the gravitational pull again? No, this is different, Zhang replied. It's more like a mental block. It's as if something is trying to interfere with our thoughts. A chill ran down Sophia's spine. She had faced physical challenges, but this was something new. Keep trying to get a clear read. We need to know what we're dealing with. Suddenly, a loud beep interrupted their conversation, and the view screen flashed to life. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge, a massive ancient structure floating in the void. It was a temple of sorts, built with unfamiliar materials that shimmered like liquid metal. At its entrance stood a figure, cloaked in shadow, a being of immense size and authority. The figure spoke, its voice booming across the ship. Humanity, you have passed the first trial. But to survive the second, you must prove your wisdom. Enter the temple and solve the riddle of the ancients. Fail, and your ship will be lost. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. A riddle? Ramirez muttered. This is a test of the mind, not the body. Yes, Sophia said, her expression grim. And it seems like we don't have a choice. We have to solve it, or we're finished. Should we land? Zhang asked. Sophia nodded. Prepare for landing. We don't know what's waiting for us, but we have no choice but to face it. As the Discovery descended toward the temple, the air seemed to grow heavier, charged with an unsettling energy. The ship landed with a soft thud, and the crew gathered their gear, preparing for whatever lay ahead. Sophia took a deep breath and turned to her crew. Remember, this is a test of wisdom. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. We've faced battles before, but this will be different. The crew nodded, and they made their way toward the entrance of the temple. Inside, the temple was eerily quiet, its walls covered in strange, glowing symbols. The light seemed to shift, casting long shadows on the floor. At the far end of the room stood a large stone pedestal, and atop it was a glowing crystal, an artifact unlike anything they had ever seen. As the crew approached the pedestal, a voice echoed through the chamber. To pass the trial, you must answer the riddle of the ancients. Fail, and the temple will consume you. The riddle is simple, yet profound. Sophia stepped forward. What is the riddle? The voice responded. What is the one thing that transcends all, time, space, and even the boundaries of life and death? It is present in every moment, yet unseen by all. Answer this, and you may pass. Fail, and your ship will be lost." The crew fell silent. This was no ordinary riddle. It was a question that seemed to challenge the very nature of existence. What could it be? Jung whispered, her brow furrowed. Time. Or maybe life itself. Ramirez shook his head. No, it's deeper than that. It's not just something we experience. It's something we cannot touch, yet it shapes everything. Sophia paced the room, her mind racing. She had always been good at puzzles. But this was different. It wasn't just a question of logic. It was a question of understanding. What transcends time, space, life, and death? She muttered to herself. And then it hit her. Memory, she said aloud. It has to be memory. It's always with us, shaping who we are, even though we can't touch it. It transcends all things because it lives on even after we're gone. It shapes the future based on the past. The voice in the chamber seemed to pause, as if considering her words. And then, with a slow, deliberate tone, it spoke again. Correct. Memory is the answer. The glowing crystal on the pedestal pulsed with light, and the entire chamber seemed to vibrate. The crew stared in awe as the stone walls shifted, revealing the hidden passageway. The temple had accepted their answer. Sophia let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. We did it. We passed the trial. The crew exchanged relieved smiles, but the feeling of unease hadn't left Sophia. The Guardians were not playing by the rules they understood. The next challenge could be far worse. The Discovery drifted away from the temple, its systems humming quietly as the crew took their places once again. They had solved the riddle of the ancients and passed the trial of wisdom, but the Guardians weren't finished with them yet. A new message flashed across the ship's communication screen, and the words that appeared sent a chill through the crew. The trial of strength begins now. Prepare yourselves. You will face the full force of the galaxy. Succeed, and you will prove humanity's worth. Fail, and you will perish. There is no escape. Sophia's hand tightened on the armrest of her chair. The Guardians weren't kidding around. They were about to test humanity's physical and mental resilience in ways the crew had never imagined. Captain, the trial is starting, Ramirez said, his voice a little shaky. We're entering a massive debris field. It's unlike anything I've seen before. The stars, they're dimming. The gravity wells are shifting. Sophia stood up and turned toward her crew. Brace yourselves. This is it. We'll face whatever comes together, as a team. Captain, Jung said, the debris field seems to be alive. The pieces are moving. I don't know if it's natural. Sophia's eyes narrowed. The Guardians are controlling it. They've put this field here to test our strength, our will to survive. Understood, Ramirez said, his hands already moving over the ship's controls. We're being pulled into it. I'm trying to maintain our course. The Discovery shuddered as the gravitational forces from the debris field began to tug at the ship, pulling it in every direction. Massive chunks of rock, metal, and ancient spacecraft floated through space, colliding with each other in a chaotic, dangerous dance. Sophia glanced at the view screen. Out there, in the endless expanse of space, there were no rules. The debris, moving with the power of hundreds of years of cosmic violence, would tear apart anything that wasn't prepared. We need to keep moving, Sophia ordered. If we stop, the debris will crush us. But just as she said those words, the ship lurched violently. The gravity from the debris field was stronger than anticipated. The Discovery was now being pulled into the heart of the chaos. All hands, brace for impact. Ramirez shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Sophia grabbed the side of her seat as the Discovery began to spin uncontrollably. Alarms blared throughout the ship. The crew struggled to hold on as the debris field hammered their ship from every side. This is it, John gasped, gripping the console. We're being torn apart. The field's too strong. No, Sophia shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. We can't let this happen. We won't give up. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sophia slammed her fist onto the control panel. The ship's engines roared to life, pushing against the gravitational forces that threatened to rip them apart. The crew worked together, making quick decisions, adjusting systems to counter the field's pull. "Captain, we can't hold this much longer," Ramirez called out, his face pale. "The hull's beginning to buckle. We need to find a way out of here." But Sophia wasn't ready to give up. She scanned the view screen and saw something, a narrow gap in the debris field, an opening that could lead them to safety. But it would be tight. "Ramirez, target that gap," she ordered. "If we don't make it through, we won't survive. Go now." With a heavy grunt, Ramirez redirected the ship's trajectory, aiming the Discovery at the small opening. The ship groaned as it struggled to break free from the clutches of the debris field. They were almost there. The ship lurched forward again, this time with even more force. One of the ship's engines exploded, sending sparks flying and knocking the crew off their feet. Sophia scrambled to get back to the helm, determination in her eyes. "We're almost there," she shouted. "Hold on." The Discovery shot forward, weaving through the jagged rocks and ancient ships. With a final powerful thrust, the ship broke free from the debris field, tumbling out of the chaos and into the calm of space. The crew stood silent, gasping for breath. They had survived the trial of strength, but at what cost? The ship was badly damaged, and the Guardians were still watching. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest, but she knew this was only the beginning. They had faced the strength of the galaxy, and they had endured. But what would be waiting for them in the final trial? The Discovery drifted silently in the cold void of space, the ship's hull battered and scarred from the trials it had endured. Inside, the crew was bruised, tired, and on edge. But they had made it this far. They had survived the trial of wisdom. They had fought their way through the trial of strength. And now came the final challenge. Sophia stood on the bridge, staring out into the darkness. Her mind raced as she thought of everything they had been through, everything they had lost, and everything they stood to gain. This was humanity's last chance. "Captain," Zhang said, her voice tinged with uncertainty, "the Guardians have made it clear that the final trial is about to begin. We're nearing the center of the galaxy." "Good," Sophia replied, her voice firm despite the tension she felt. "It's now or never." "Captain, there's something strange," Ramirez added, glancing at his monitor. "I'm reading massive energy surges ahead. Nothing like we've seen before. It's not natural. It's as if something's waiting for us." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. They had already encountered forces that defied understanding. But what could be waiting for them now? As if to answer her question, the ship's alarms began to blare, signaling an incoming force. The lights flickered, and the whole ship trembled. "It's happening," Zhang muttered. "We're entering a massive energy field. This must be the final trial." Just then, the void before them shattered. A colossal, shadowy figure appeared, surrounded by a glowing, swirling vortex of dark energy. It was a ship. No, a weapon, the likes of which the crew had never seen. It dwarfed the Discovery, its size unimaginable, its power radiating across space. This was the final challenge. Face this monstrous force, or watch as the galaxy falls to destruction. The figure on the view screen spoke, its voice echoing with ancient authority. "Humanity, you have proven your worth in the trials of wisdom and strength. Now you must prove your heart, your courage, and your determination. The final trial is a battle you must win, not only for yourselves, but for every civilization you have sworn to protect." Sophia stood tall, a fire burning in her eyes. "We've fought for our future. We'll fight for everyone's future." The colossal weapon loomed closer, its energy pulses crackling like thunder. As it approached, smaller ships, dark, sleek, and deadly, emerged from its massive hull. They were sentinels, automated drones, created to test their willpower in a direct confrontation. There would be no more tests of intellect or strength alone. This was a fight, and humanity had no choice but to face it. All hands, brace for combat. Sophia ordered, "Prepare the weapons. Shields up. We're not backing down." The Discovery's engines roared to life, surging forward, narrowly avoiding the first blast from the approaching enemy. The ship rocked as the drones fired their energy weapons. The shields flared brightly, absorbing the blasts, but they weren't going to hold for long. "Captain, we're outnumbered," Ramirez shouted, his voice strained. "We need to make a move now, or we'll be overwhelmed." Sophia's mind raced. The odds were impossible, but they couldn't give up. They had already come so far. "Zhang, target the central core of that massive ship," Sophia commanded. "If we can disrupt its power source, we might stand a chance." The Discovery fired its main weapons, striking the central core of the enemy ship. The energy pulses rocked the ship, but the enemy retaliated with a devastating wave of fire. The Discovery shuddered violently, and Sophia was thrown from her seat. Alarms blared as systems failed, but they weren't finished yet. "Get up, everyone," Sophia shouted, determination in her voice. "We're not dead yet." The crew scrambled to their stations, working together as they fought back against the relentless barrage. For every hit they took, they fired back harder, striking at the heart of the dark enemy ship. But the enemy wasn't just fighting with technology. It was fighting with something older, more primal. "We're pushing back," Zhang said, her voice fierce. "Their systems are failing. We've got this." But just as victory seemed within reach, a blinding flash of light erupted from the enemy ship. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, and it was aimed directly at the Discovery. The crew watched in horror as the blast hurtled toward them. "We're out of time," Ramirez yelled. "We have to move." Sophia's heart pounded as she saw the energy beam growing closer. It would end everything. Their ship, their mission, their entire fight. But she couldn't let it happen. "Full power to engines," she commanded. "Ramirez, get us in front of that blast. Now." The Discovery surged forward with everything they had left. The blast was a mere moments away from hitting, but in the final seconds, the Discovery dove into the heart of the beam, using the ship's massive energy shields to deflect the worst of the blast. Time seemed to freeze. The ship groaned, its hull burning under the energy of the explosion, but it held together. And then, just as it seemed like the Discovery would disintegrate, the enemy ship staggered, its energy shields collapsing. With one final strike from the Discovery's weapons, the massive ship erupted in a series of explosions. Humanity had done it. They had won.